Hi, good evening. And so today is the 18th of April 2021, and every Sunday at about 8 p.m. London time, we like to give a webinar and blog from Zimmer and Peacock for the news for this week. So this is that video and blog. So I just want to kind of give an update on our news. So if we look at the ZP news for this week, one of the sort of big pieces of news that we put out there is at ZP we're in a sort of constant state of development. You know, the company's growing, we've been hiring a lot of people. There's a new facility, 4,000 square meters, and we became ISO 13485. So it's been very a very rapid growth in the last year. And as part of the kit out of this new building that's become available, we've started putting in these clean rooms, and I think they call this kind of box in box, because essentially you build a clean room inside a normal, well, I say normal room. These are extremely big halls. So we've got these large halls at ZP, and we're building some halls now. Oh, sorry, within those halls we're actually building some new clean rooms. So it's quite it's early days on these clean rooms, but you can, if you're watching the video log or if you're listening along on the podcast, I'll just describe it. But essentially we've putting in these new walls, and they're going to have these new supports, and we're putting extraction hoods in, etc., to kind of keep the facilities nice and clean. Essentially, people sometimes ask us, how do I manufacture a biosensor? And essentially, if you don't control the conditions, including the kind of cleanliness or the dust particles in your atmosphere, it's going to be very hard to make a reproducible biosensor. So I just want to kind of say that one of the big pieces of news from Zimmer and Peacock this week is we obviously have this new facility, and we're obviously spending quite a bit now in kitting it out. So if people are, there's a lot of people who are online who are kind of interested in doing or working for us, or interested in doing placements with us. We would definitely encourage you to kind of carry on applying, but I just want to kind of say, there is some decent equipment coming into this new facility as well. So that was some of the news from ZP this week. So I just want to also say that at ZP, one of our sort of most popular electrodes is something we call the hypervalue electrode. Now, one of the things about the hypervalue electrode is if we just look at it, it actually has a rectangular electrode. And for ZP, the rectangular electrode is really good, because essentially at Zimmer and Peacock, we're quite different from a lot of companies. They make these screen printed electrodes, and they will essentially do exactly what people ask them to do. But what people are doing is people are asking for these circular electrodes, and these circular electrodes are very useful when you want a hand pipette. You can pipette a little drop down, it spreads out in a sort of circular direction, you get a nice even coating. And then people say to us, well, at ZP you seem to make a lot of these kind of rectangular electrodes. Why is it you do that? And the answer is this, that we've always got a vision that people are actually going to go to market. And if you're going to go to a market with a screen printed electrode, you're probably going to put the electrodes in a microfluidic device. Now, with a microfluidic device, you can have what they call capillary fill, where sample comes in and it flows along the chamber, and you then get a result. So on our website, if you're so interested, we have capillary fill electrodes, and we have some videos showing those types of capillary fill electrodes in action. So we make rectangular electrodes not because we're trying to so much support the research effort. We're actually trying to support the product, and people are actually going to market, and that's what makes us really different. So when you look at our rectangular electrodes, you think, well, that's not going to be very easy for me to hand pipette onto, and it is actually okay. And we do, if you follow any of our webinars or YouTube videos, we do talk about how you can functionalize these rectangular electrodes. But the reason we make them rectangular is not because we're trying to be different in any way. It's genuinely because rectangular electrodes in a microfluidic channel allow you to have a kind of system where the sample will come in, it will cover an electrode, it will then get to the next electrode and maybe the third electrode, and essentially what that will do then is it'll trigger the electronics to know that the sensor is filled and covered. So we make rectangular electrodes so that you can have automatic start in your real product. Now we do understand that there is actually a big push, from the research community who would like 4mm electrodes. So we did put some images out there this week and say, look, we are going to do a 4mm circular electrode so that you can hand pipette onto it. The demand is there, people are requesting it, and we are just saying, look, if you're interested in this kind of electrodes, please register with us, please contact us, and we'll make that electrode available to you as we get it, as it comes to us. So let me summarize then. So on this one, so ZP is going to do a 4mm circular electrode. We're doing it because people request it. And if you're ever wondering why we make our electrodes rectangular, it's because we've always got a vision that you're actually going to go to market, and that way you can, with these rectangular electrodes perpendicular to the flow, you can have an automatic start for your assay. So that's why we do what we do with that regard. So some other news this week, we had some really nice results with an engineer and a group at Heriot-Watt that we've been collaborating with. So at Zimmer and Peacock, we make a really nice solid state pH sensor. So we have our screen printed solid state pH sensors. They're pretty good, and we also have a pH sensor that's in fact got 9 pH sensors on board, and those 9 pH sensors are actually in a area that's only like 12mm by 12mm. Sorry, yeah, 12mm by 12mm. It's really small, and so we've been doing a good piece of work with Heriot-Watt and our engineers collaborating. Well, we've actually got all 9 electrodes working, and we're able to get all the data into one piece of software. So essentially, we can now do pH detection, pH measurement, but also pH resolution. So if you've got a solution where the pHs are different across the solution, this 3x3 array of electrodes allows you to actually sort of see that electrode is at pH 7 and that electrode is at pH 10. So if you look into if you're watching the video log, we've got some color coding up here. You can see that here they're treating it almost like pixels, which I think is pretty cool. So we have a green pixel and a blue pixel, so you can sort of see that the blue pixel is probably more like pH 10 and the green pixel is more like pH 7. So that was some pretty cool work this week that the ZP engineers did with the guys at Heriot-Watt. And then some other news from ZP this week, this is pretty good as well, is at Zimmer and Peacock. I actually showed a little video earlier on and said, this is a capillary fill sensor. The thing is, capillary fill or microfluidics, it goes hand in hand with it really goes hand in hand. Microfluidics goes hand in hand with biosensors. So really, it's if you want to have a biosensor, you need microfluidics. You need a way of moving your sample onto your sensor. And so we're very keen on microfluidics at ZP, and so we've put out some technology this week to really help people with the capillary film nature of their sensors. And so if you have a look at our news, we've got this 3D printed biosensors and screen printed electrodes. So if you dig into this a bit more, there's some pictures here of ZP's hyper value electrodes with some 3D printed parts on top. So what we've actually done is you can take our screen printed electrodes. You can purchase them as per normal. They're pretty cool because they're like they're in packs of 200, but they're 99 cents each. So you can take those screen printed electrodes. You can buy some adhesives. So we have adhesives with rectangular shapes on them, circular shapes on them, and square shapes on them. And the reason that we have these various shapes is because we're actually making these STL files available on the ZP Developer Zone. We've put a price on these STL files, but if you are a member of the ZP Developer Zone, it's 100%. We can provide 100% discount code, so it'll cost you nothing. So essentially now what you can do is you can put microfluidic devices on top of the screen printed electrodes by essentially 3D printing them.
Hi, so this is a...
And I'm just playing the video. I'm just playing the video now on my on the video log. But essentially, there's these STL files. Download them off the Developer Zone. Adhere them to the ZP screen printed electrodes, and you have yourself a screen printed electrode, which you can convert into a biosensor, and you can have microfluidic device on top of it. And essentially, then you're able to sort of form a capillary fill. And that's good because now you have a way of moving the solution to the sensor, controlling the volume on the sensor, and that turns a screen printed electrode really into an in vitro diagnostic. For me, in vitro diagnostic often means electrochemical sensor plus microfluidics really equals in vitro diagnostics. So what I shall do then is say, and yeah, please join the Developer Zone. You can ask us for a discount code. It'll be 100%, and you can download this STL files. Now, the last thing I just want to cover this week is some sodium sensors. So at Zimmer & Peacock, we've got a super large range of screen printed electrodes. We have a super large range then of biosensors, and within that biosensors we have some ISEs, some ion selective electrodes. We put a video up there this week because one of our engineers, Anna, was testing a sodium sensor, and so the guys show in that video the experimental setup. You can kind of see the sensor in the video where it's sort of in a little beaker, and they've got a little beaker stirring on a magnetic stirrer. They show how the sensor takes a little time to equilibrate, and when it's equilibrated they add in some sodium and the sensor shows a nice jump in signal. And it's quite a nice video in some ways because it not only shows how we work, it probably also shows the care with which we work. You know, in terms of, you know, the lab is obviously quite, you know, as you would expect from a company like Zimmer & Peacock. It's a very well organized lab, very clean and tidy. We have a really good engineer and scientist in the lab who really care about the environment that they're working in. And so in that video, Anna has the sensor in the solution. She adds the sodium in. If you're watching the live stream, you'll see it in a minute. She'll add in the sodium, which she's probably going to do now, and they'll probably zoom in on her screen in a minute because at the moment the signal's just going along. You add in the sodium. It's an ion selective electrode, so it will show a voltage change as a function of the ion concentration. And it's probably worth knowing we've got some extensive webinars on this kind of biosensor on our YouTube channel. And there you are, the signal's jumped up, and she gets essentially a new signal. So that's a fairly typical kind of experiment that we do at Zimmer & Peacock. So I suppose it's quite nice because when in this webinar at the very beginning of it, or this pod, you know, we were actually discussing clean rooms, and those clean rooms are really being built in the new facility to actually allow us to manufacture in a very controlled, clean environment. But you can also see there's the other side of the coin for Zimmer & Peacock, that in fact, you know, we also have laboratories where we do essentially fundamental research and development. So let me come off this video and let me do a bit of a summary for this week. So we're building those Class 7 clean rooms. I know a lot of you on YouTube, are pretty keen to kind of join the company and do placements with us. We are active, we are recruiting. It's only the COVID-19 that's really preventing quite a few people who we've promised. We've promised some placements with, so that will happen. We are going to bring out a new 4mm diameter electrode, and if you want to receive one, please click the buttons and register for that. And also spatial resolution on pH. I mean, this is a pretty cool sensor that we have, where in fact we have 9 sensors, 9 pH sensors in a really sort of dense array, let's say, and we're actually able to address each one of those. So you not only know the pH, if there's a difference in the pH across the sample, we can also know that, and I think that's really quite cool. And I like the way that this engineers have color coded that, so it's essentially like a pixel, and that's pretty good. And then just finally, I think it's finally, yeah. Well, actually, 2 things. We have put some 3D printed files which you can print microfluidics for your screen printed electrodes, and please join the developer zone because you can get those STL files completely free. And then lastly, we just put our video out there about testing ion selective electrodes, because ZP is an unusual company that we have really good manufacturing, and then these really state-of-the-art laboratories fully kitted out for people interested in doing biosensor development. So as I say, today is the 18th of April. It's 20 past 8, approximately 20 past 8 here in London, and this was a look back at the news from ZP for the week starting, I think it was the 11th of April, yeah. The 12th of April rather, this week. Okay, so if you've got any questions or comments about ZP or for ZP, don't hesitate to contact us. Okay, I'm sorry if we had any lag issues this evening, but otherwise, thank you and speak to you. Don't forget, we have our live webinar for ZP Developer Zone members, 8 AM every Thursday, London time. So join the ZP Developer Zone. We do a very technical webinar at 8 AM every Thursday London time. Okay, thanks very much.